My mom kicked me out with only 3 hours notice after I told her I was pregnant. Now, she wants to re-enter my daughter's life because of her trust fund. I informed my mother I was pregnant at 22. She gave me 3 hours to pack and leave. Declared I could handle the penalties of becoming a changed locks while sitting on the front step with 2 garbage bags of clothes and nowhere to go. My daughter's father was a college freshman orientation one-night stand. Ethan was visiting from Switzerland, but I didn't know his last name. Never saw him again after that night. He didn't know his number or school. I quit school, moved into a shelter, and left Lily in a county hospital while my mother told everyone I went to Vegas to strip. Absolute agony ensued for 4 years. Customers grabbed my ass for $3 tips while waiting tables at a restaurant. Black mold and insects at a studio. Lily slept in a dresser drawer because I couldn't afford a cot. WIC visits, food assistance, trekking 4 miles to work since the bus didn't leave early. My mother's 4-bedroom house was 20 minutes distant. Without calling or visiting, she informed family I was deceased. My sister Rachel surreptitiously met me at Parks and brought Lily secondhand clothes, but she was too terrified to do more. Mom threatened to cut her off if she helped me. I succeeded though. I earned my GED online while Tyler slept. 3 years old, she started community college. Got better waitressing gigs, saved money, and relocated to a safer apartment. Lily was smart, humorous, rated 4, and did basic math before school. Everything I did was for her. I saw a guy enter my restaurant last month. An expensive suit with a Swiss accent stared at me. Last, inquired whether I attended State University 4 years prior. My heart stopped. Ethan became Adrian Moretti. His family ran luxury hotels across Europe. After his cousin gave him my university orientation archive photo, he searched for me for 2 years. He hired detectives, investigated social media, and spent thousands to find a female he'd spent one night with because he couldn't forget me. I introduced him to Lily and her photo. He sobbed at the restaurant. His father pushed him to marry someone else. Adrian declined, thinking of the American girl who drunkenly quoted Shakespeare and laughed at his bad jokes. His desire was to meet Lily quickly. In a week he set up a trust fund for her, bought us a house, and demanded $12,000 a month for 4 years of child support. His family traveled up from Switzerland and lavished Lily with love and presents. My mother returned then. She came to my new residence with flowers and tears, admitting her mistake. She missed us a lot. Family should pardon. My neighbors informed her about the Mercedes in my driveway, Swiss registration plates and high-end store delivery vans. She knew Adrian's identity and family value from her investigation. Since Lily had a trust fund and Swiss finishing school potential, she wanted to be involved. I let her in and speak. She talked about second chances, my youth, and her desire for the best. Her eyes brightened up as she spotted Lily's photo with Adrian's family at their Swiss house. We should plan her 6th birthday together, remarked. Maybe in Switzerland. I've always wanted to see Geneva. Adrian entered from the kitchen. He heard everything. My mother looked radiant, extended her hand and gushed over her granddaughter. Adrian thought her palm was sewage covered. He said, "You're the woman who threw out your pregnant daughter?" My mother mumbled stern love and duty. Adrian flashed her something on his phone. Her face blanched. The shelter where your daughter spent her first month homeless sent this police report. She was abandoned as a youngster. Her social services records show she requested for emergency housing when 8 months pregnant. This hospital report shows she gave birth alone as impoverished. Want me to continue? Adrian interrupted my mother's explanation. He swiped to another screen and faced her. He spoke quietly yet sharply. The shelter intake form had my name at the top and a red checkbox for abandoned minor. Adrian interrupted my mother to ask whether she wanted him to continue with his investigators' 4 years of documentation. I halted outside the kitchen doorway, grasping the frame, watching her make excuses. She said she didn't grasp how awful things were, thought I'd figure it out, and was angry and afraid. Adrian browsed through several screens without looking away, presenting hospital and social services papers like evidence in court. Tears mingled with my mother's foundation, which she'd meticulously applied before coming here. She spun around and trembled, claiming she'd been so afraid, made a terrible mistake, and wondered about me every day. I moved back before she could touch me, and spoke calmly when I ordered her to go. Adrian walked beside me silently, supporting me as I opened the front door. My mother stood in the midst of my new living room, looking shocked. She requested that we chat so she could explain. I held the door open with my heart racing so loudly I felt everyone could hear it, but my hand didn't shake the knob. She collected her handbag and flowers and walked by me with her head down and more tears. Before closing the door, I watched her get into her car and drive away. then rested against it for a bit as my legs weakened. Adrian and I sat at the kitchen table after I verified that Lily was still sleeping upstairs, her nightlight flickering softly through her door gap. He apologized for ambushing me with the documents, saying he'd paid detectives to find me and gathered everything. He saved my complete survival story in the files in case I needed evidence. I held a chilly mug of tea as we discussed what to do. Instead of pushing for immediate family visits and plans with Lily, he startled me by proposing we start with formal paternity confirmation. He claimed Lily and I deserve formal and secured protection after handling a debt for so long. 2 days later we saw Mia Sanders at her downtown office, which had thick carpet and framed legal degrees. She was younger than expected, maybe mid-30s, and wore a practical suit and a serious face. Mia emphasized that Adrian hired her to serve my interests, not his, and that she worked for me alone even though he paid her. She guided us through a court-admissible DNA test that would stand up in court. Having a lawyer who responded just to me was weird but safer than imagined. She took notes on a yellow legal pad while she asked specific questions about what I wanted safeguarded and what scared me most. Before test results arrived, she explained financial constraints with a packet of paperwork. Adrian immediately placed back child support into an escrow account that would release following official paternity confirmation. He couldn't take the house he bought back whatever occurred between us, since it was in my name with legal safeguards. I felt overwhelmed by page after page of terminology and clauses, but Mia described each portion in straightforward English. She listed every precaution she'd taken to protect Lily and me in case something went wrong. My palm cramped as I signed where she instructed, but I was glad for every word that prevented ambiguity. After we finished, Rachel texted me that Mom was phoning every relative. She told them I kept Tyler a secret out of anger and was cruel for not allowing her be a grandma. The old worry of familial isolation hit strongly. That 4-year sensation of isolation. I reassured myself that most of their family thought I was a Vegas dancer anyhow. They never contacted me when I needed support. Lily glanced up at me curiously as we sat on her bed with her plush rabbit under one arm that evening. I just stated that a European acquaintance I'd known before she was born wanted to meet her. I promised her we'd take our time to figure out whether he was pleasant, and I didn't call him father since nothing was proven, and I wouldn't break my commitments. Lily nodded earnestly and inquired whether the acquaintance enjoyed cartoons too. I suggested we could find out by asking him questions and letting her decide how she felt. At the end of the first week, we gathered at a lovely Saturday morning public park with newer equipment and wood chips instead of concrete. Adrian brought a cheap soccer ball and asked Lily about her favorite color and playgrounds. Standing partially behind my leg, she was timid at first but interested enough to say she enjoyed purple and swings. I saw them kick the ball on the grass from near, Adrian, moving slowly and speaking softly. Lily stopped the ball with her foot and inquired why he spoke strange, tilting her head like a jigsaw figure. Adrian chuckled warmly and said he was from Switzerland, where people talk differently. He told her McDonald's is there, but the menu is in French and German. I saw him be honest and age-appropriate. Instead of promising trips or gifts, answer her inquiries like. She was a genuine person whose ideas mattered. I watched from a bench as they kicked the ball. Near enough to intervene, remote enough to interact. As they played, Lily's guard relaxed, but she still looked at me every few minutes to make sure I was there. My mother left a message on day 8 that I listened to twice before deleting. She said she forgives me for withholding Lily from her for years. She wanted to go on as a family for Tyler and was ready when I was. I was irritated and fatigued after listening. Dealing with an incomprehensible person exhausts you to the core. I didn't call back because I needed time to ponder and was done jumping into hurtful things. The phone stayed quiet on my kitchen counter while I spread peanut butter to Lily's liking for lunch. I understood that not answering was preferable than explaining myself again. I drove straight to work for the early shift after dropping Lily off at kindergarten the next morning. I took my midday break and strolled 3 blocks to the public library where I studied for my GED when Lily was a newborn. I used an unused computer terminal in the back corner to research grandparents' rights in our state. The restrictions were strict, requiring proof of a relationship, or that stopping contact would harm the kid. My mother had neither, but the websites warned that determined grandparents might file petitions and drag families through thousands of dollars in court fights. I noted legislation, case names, and filing requirements in a notepad. Gathering knowledge made the terror seem smaller, more controllable, like something I could prepare for. I took phone images of the key pages and emailed Mia Sanders with a brief note asking if we should be alarmed. I put on my apron and took dinner orders at the restaurant. Still half thinking legal terms. Mia's name showed on my phone during my break the next afternoon. She requested a consultation to shield Lily and me from legal harassment, saying that we needed a paper trail and defined limits before my mother could gain legal ground. To accommodate the appointment on Tuesday at 10 a.m., I swapped shifts with another server. Two frequent customers sat in my area on Friday night, speaking loud enough for me to hear about the Mercedes with Swiss plates parked outside and whether I was dating a royal. Though my face burned, I held my pen steady on the order pad and wrote their food choices clearly. A few minutes later, my boss saw me frozen at the kitchen door and discreetly inquired if I was okay, offering to shift me to different tables if people were disturbing me. I thanked him but said I could handle it, though my hands shook as I brought plates back to the dining room. Rachel emailed me on Saturday afternoon wondering where we might meet for coffee. I recommended a spot across town along the freeway, where no one from our area would know us. She was already in a corner booth when I arrived. She had her college textbook on the table, but her eyes seemed sad. We had coffee, and she said she wanted to help me but was afraid Mom would cut her off financially because she was only halfway through her degree and couldn't lose her tuition. I grabbed her hand across the table and told her I understood, and that she'd helped us more than anybody by smuggling supplies throughout those terrible years. We sobbed quietly and wiped them away so other customers wouldn't see. Monday morning's DNA test in a downtown medical facility with official documentation and chain of custody processes seemed more serious than expected. A technician in blue scrubs described each process on labeled paperwork and swabbed Lily and Adrian's cheeks with long cotton sticks. Lily laughed and asked if they were checking for cavities like the dentist, and Adrian grinned and answered something similar. We decided silently not to tell her what the test was for until we received results, keeping our explanations basic, honest, and not intimidating. Lily ran to the vehicle, telling about how the stick tickled, while Adrian and I looked relieved. Week 3's lawyer session saw Mia distribute alternatives over her conference table like cards in a tricky game. We could file for court-ordered custody, set privacy measures to protect this from becoming viral, and send my mother a cease and desist letter if she kept bothering us. Though the paperwork seemed unending, stacks of documents needing signatures and notarization, the clarity helped. Adrian and I spent 2 hours that afternoon creating a co-parenting framework that began with supervised visits and increased dependent on Lily's comfort. Mia proposed realistic timetables with holiday and sick day backups, making it feel reasonable rather than intimidating and overwhelming. While waiting for test results, we signed the document in good faith with official signatures at the bottom. Lily's school number appeared on my phone during my supper shift on Thursday. The administrator said calmly but firmly that my mother had come to the office pretending to be the grandmother and inquired about pickup procedures. I told my manager I had an emergency and left work immediately, quivering with protective wrath as I drove 6 blocks to school. The administrator said they hadn't published any information and asked if I wanted to file a formal restriction to prevent repeat incidences. I agreed without hesitation, filling out the papers at the office as Lily played on the playground, unconscious of what occurred. The next day, Mia wrote to my mother to set a no-contact limit and warn her that any additional attempts to access Lily or propagate family stories will result in legal action. Signing it felt me sick with remorse but oddly strong, like I was choosing safety above peace for the first time in my life. After Lily went to bed, I started a secret notebook of every mother-related encounter, voicemail and incident. Mia claimed it may matter in court, but it also helped me sort the pandemonium into written facts. Recording what happened made it difficult to mistrust myself afterward since it couldn't be changed. Adrian arrived at my flat the next afternoon with a European furniture brochure with sticky notes showcasing beautiful dollhouses that cost $2,800. He spread the brochure on my kitchen table and pointed to a Victorian-style home with functioning lights and hand-carved embellishments, adding, "Lily deserved beautiful things after the years we'd struggled." I felt sick looking at the price tag because it was more than 2 months of my former rent, and more than I'd spent on furniture for our apartment. I said it was too much too quickly, and that Lily was 5 and would be content with a $25 plastic toy shop one. He appeared perplexed and upset, as if he didn't understand why pouring money at everything wasn't the answer. I told him that experiences were more important than costly things after 20 minutes of discussion. Visiting the children's museum or zoo would make nicer memories than a playhouse she'd outgrow. Instead of resisting, Adrian suggested we take a weekend vacation to the science center with Lily's favorite interactive displays. That willingness to listen and alter direction was more valuable than any gift. A courier delivered the DNA findings 3 days later in an official package with lab seals and legal stamps. Adrian came over that night and we reviewed pages of genetic markers and chance percentages on my couch to corroborate what we already knew. We brought Lily in from her room, where she'd been coloring, and seated her on the couch between us, speaking softly. Adrian informed her he was her daddy and had been seeking for us for a long time. He didn't know about her before, but now he did, and wanted to be part of her life. Lily thought over this silently, her face serious like youngsters attempting to grasp something profound. She wondered whether she had Swiss grandparents like her friend Maya did in California. We replied sure, that her whole family wanted to meet her when she was ready, but only when she felt comfortable. She nodded and resumed coloring, perhaps needing time to reflect. Mia recommended Phyllis Sanders, a child therapist who dealt with youngsters going through severe family transitions, the next morning when we visited at her office. We planned an intake visit for the next week to give Lily time to process without intervention. Professional support didn't accept failure, Mia said. It protected Lily from adult overload. Learning to seek for aid didn't make me weak. It meant I was knowledgeable enough to recognize our guiding needs. I spotted a strange local area code on my phone that afternoon while working at the restaurant. I was requested to call back for a remark on the secret air myth circulating online. After hearing the reporter say she'd heard about Adrian's daughter and wanted to check details before writing, my hands started trembling. Panicked, I phoned Mia from the restaurant toilet. She urged me to enact the privacy strategy we agreed, which included no media interaction and letting the story die from lack of information. We decided to remain silent and use silence as a defense. My mother's handwriting appeared on a big envelope in my mailbox 2 days later. She apologized for her blunders but also listed all the locations she wanted to take Lily, and suggested we organize a family trip to Switzerland in a 5-page letter. She talked about missing us and how families should forgive, but every piece had ties and demands that I forget 4 years of neglect. After reading it again, I saw how she was attempting to get back in by pretending everything was forgiven and we were a happy family again. She wanted Lily in Adrian's world without showing she'd changed. The letter joined the other material in my documents folder. I visited Phyllis at her office the following Tuesday while Adrian waited in the lobby. Her inquiries included Lily's habit, personality, how she'd handled changes before, and what frightened me most about this move. Adrian arrived, and we discussed the problem from our views while Phyllis took notes. She took Lily in for a nice, age-appropriate session with toys and painting tools after an hour. While Lily sketched and played with miniature figurines, Phyllis asked casual inquiries about her family and thoughts. Finally, Phyllis advised us to make Lily's routine stable and introduce changes gradually, allowing her handle relationship building. She offered us scripts for discussing difficult things and checking in with Lily without interrogating her. Rachel contacted that night asking if I'd consider monitored restricted contact with our mother to avoid her filing for grandparents' rights out of spite. I stared at my phone, torn between safeguarding Rachel and knowing my mother hadn't yet gained access to Lily. I wanted to ease my sister's burden after years of discreetly aiding us. However, another part realized that manipulating to avoid conflict was how my mother had ruled everyone for decades. I told Rachel I needed to consider and consult my lawyer. The next morning, Mia showed me the state's grandparents' petition laws, which stated that my mother had practically little standing to pursue visitation without a relationship. She offered mediation initially as a good faith gesture that would establish legal paperwork if my mother was unreasonable. We could show a court we tried to resolve problems, and my mother was the hurdle. I consented to mediation if strong restrictions were drawn out concerning contact and limits. That afternoon, the reporter left another note on my apartment door. This one offered to meet off the record to hear my perspective before others warped the narrative. I grasped the page, wanting to correct the record and control the story. I remembered Mia's advice. That engaging provided the tailfire and attention, and that silence was the fastest way to make it uninteresting and useless. I shredded and tossed away the note. Phyllis had Lily make a family and feelings portrait at her second therapy appointment the following week. Lily sketched a question mark-filled thinking bubble over her head in the middle. At Phyllis's gentle inquiry, Lily replied she was afraid her daddy would go again like he did, even though she realized it wasn't his fault he didn't know about her. We addressed her concern by calling it out instead of pretending everything was normal. Adrian brought a large craft shop bag that weekend, and we sat at the kitchen table with Lily. He took out a blank monthly calendar with large daily squares and 2 sheets of stickers with airplanes, video cameras, hearts, and stars. Lily gasped and grabbed the stickers as Adrian explained that we were constructing a chart to illustrate when he would visit, and when they would communicate on the internet. I saw her carefully choose purple hearts for video call days and gold stars for in-person visits from the stickers. Adrian pointed to each spot and let her place stickers to tally the days between visits. Although she glued them somewhat wrong and overlapping, she was really earnest. She wanted to hang it in her room immediately away once we completed. We tacked it on her bedside wall so she could view it every morning. She adored it and begged for more stickers for birthdays and other special days. Adrian agreed and gave her the full sheet, and seeing them plan relaxed me. Adrian called 3 days later when I was doing laundry to ask if his parents could have some Lily photographs for their family album. I dropped my shirt as my body stiffened. I told him I needed to think, and we could discuss later. After we hung up, I felt my protective walls slam back, thinking of strangers across the ocean seeing images of my baby. My conversation with Mia that night helped me see that some photo sharing was fine, but I could impose strong boundaries. The next day, I offered Adrian 3 shots I would choose with a signed agreement that nothing got on social media and the photos kept with his close family. He accepted without hesitation and thanked me for trusting him to share so much. I chose 3 photographs from last month of Lily reading, playing at the park, and smiling. Sending them seemed like giving up bits of her I couldn't guard. Adrian had gained my trust, so I did it. Rachel missed 5 calls the next morning. I contacted her back and she said to check Mom's Facebook immediately. My stomach was turning as I opened the app and saw a new album called My Precious Girls, with 20 childhood images of Rachel and myself. The subtitles mentioned happy memories, strong family relationships, and her gorgeous kids. I barely remembered birthday and holiday photos. Everyone before I became pregnant. No photos from the previous 4 years because she wasn't there. Many relatives commented on how pleasant the memories were and how great a mother she must be. Reading her rewrite history for the ignorant made me ill. Rachel had screenshotted and forwarded me every photo and description for proof. She wanted me to document Mom's activities in case it mattered. I saved everything to an evidence folder on my phone and attempted to use the hurt instead of falling into old doubts. Mia phoned that afternoon to say she'd scheduled mediation with Olivia Carter, a family conflict mediator. The agreement included ground rules for the 2-week program. My mother had to apologize for each action, pledge to commencing treatment within a week, and agree in writing that any contact with Lily was my decision with no time frame. Mia said my mother's lawyer examined the agreements and she'd attend. I was startled she agreed such harsh restrictions, but Mia reminded me that my mother probably felt she could charm her way through mediation and get what she wanted. We'd see if she followed through or if it was manipulation. 2 nights later, I worked dinner at the restaurant and everything was fine until table 12. I accepted his order as usual when a Thursday regular sat down. He grinned at me as I brought his dinner and shouted loudly enough for surrounding tables to hear that I'd found a rich Swiss guy. Was I sure I hadn't imprisoned him intentionally? My face was burning as I froze with the plate in my hand. I carefully set the plate down and requested him to stop since it was unacceptable. He laughed like a joke, but my manager heard from across the room. She approached and politely ordered him to pay his payment and go. She refused to let him argue and claimed the restaurant didn't allow customer harassment. He fled after throwing cash on the table as customers watched. My boss massaged my shoulder and urged me to take a 5-minute back break. I stood in the kitchen shivering with fury and relief that someone supported me. Adrian and I met with our lawyers at Mia's office the following Monday. She meticulously planned a temporary parenting plan. Adrian visited every other weekend for 8 hours on Saturday and Wednesday night video calls. Structured documented financial help would be provided. We had to agree on Lily's schooling, health, and hobbies. Typing was formal with signatures and witness lines. Adrian and I signed numerous copies of our names across the conference table. It was safer to document everything in legal terminology than to trust each other. The framework protected Lily most, preventing us from making hasty changes without procedure. Mia submitted the plan with the court that afternoon, making it official. Olivia's downtown office hosted the mediation on a dreary Thursday morning. My mother was on time, dressed well, and bringing tissues in her handbag. Olivia sat between us and discussed the regulations before we began. My mother sobbed instantly, claiming she'd made a horrible mistake since she was young and afraid when I became pregnant. But then she justified teaching me responsibility and saying rough love was best. Though my heart was racing and I interrupted her, I maintained cool. I wanted her to admit acts without excuses. I stated each action she took, asking her to ensure she recalled putting me out with 3 hours' notice, changing the locks, denying communication for 4 years, and informing relatives I was dead. She sobbed more but explained her rationale. Olivia stopped her and stated the activity required unjustified acknowledgement. My mother wanted to defend herself, but she decided to write everything down as homework. Olivia agreed to evaluate her writing 2 weeks later. I discussed mediation with Phyllis the next day. She attentively reviewed Olivia's notes and inquired about the session. I told her hearing my mother weep was harder than imagined, but I was glad I demanded accountability. Phyllis helped me consider whether Lily could safely handle supervised interaction. She stated my mother had to show continuous improvement, not merely apologize and demand access. Together, we set criteria: 6 months of weekly treatment with attendance, verification, written accountability for her behavior without excuses or justifications, and no manipulation or pushback on my boundaries. We would contemplate a supervised meeting between her and Lily, only if she regularly met all three standards. I liked the timeline because it let my mother work while safeguarding Lily from a stranger. The reporter's account appeared in a local internet news site Saturday morning. I forced myself to read it with coffee, expecting horror. It respected and prioritized privacy rights for complicated families. After the writer fact-checked everything and I declined to respond, much of it was legal boundary conjecture that went off within 2 days. It wasn't rumor, which reassured me. Some coworkers saw it, but nobody asked. Rachel texted me that afternoon. Mother texted her all morning moaning that I was hiding her kid from her and begged Rachel to talk to me on her behalf. This time Rachel didn't relay Mom's concerns or intervene. She contacted me to say she'd advised Mom to work with the mediator and ceased using her as a go-between. She stated she was tired of being in the middle and that Mom needed to gain our trust by her actions. I responded back thanking her and praising her for putting that barrier. Rachel seems to be finding her voice instead of pleasing everyone. Adrian phoned the next morning while I was cooking Lily breakfast and suggested we meet at the park near my flat to discuss his schedule. We sat on a seat as Lily played on the swings 20 feet away, where I could see her. He showed us his phone calendar and proposed staying for a week instead of 3 days since his family wanted more time with Lily and he could work remotely from the hotel. I tensed up and told him the therapist had said gradual increments were best for Lily, that leaping from 3 to 7 days was too rapid. He looked agitated, ran his hand through his hair, and argued she was all right. I interrupted him and said we shouldn't push more just because she appeared okay. That youngsters often displayed stress unexpectedly later. He sat quietly while Lily pumped her legs on the swing, then nodded and said he understood even though leaving was hard when things were well. I liked that he listened instead of arguing and slowed down even if it was against his will. We decided to stay 3 days this time and add 1 next month if Lily adjusted well. We felt like we were learning to work together instead of just sacrificing to maintain the peace. Olivia emailed me 3 days later with an attachment displaying my mother's first therapy intake appointment. A qualified therapist signed a paper confirming the session date and time, and a treatment plan outlined for weekly visits. I glanced at the document for a while, hoping but primarily suspicious. 4 years of desertion, and decades of controlling and conditional behavior didn't disappear with one meeting. Olivia's professional, impartial email noted improvement without exaggerating it. She reminded me that lasting transformation takes months, not weeks, and that this was only the first step. I added the email to my mediation documents folder, adding to the accumulating mountain of evidence that chronicled everything. That afternoon, I traveled to my former neighborhood for the first time since moving. After 3 years in that dingy studio apartment with Lily, I parked outside. The front door paint was still flaking, and the parking lot still had oily water puddles. The memories weighed me down while I sat with the engine running and windows open. The mildew scent that persisted despite bleaching. Lily cried from hunger while I waited for my salary to buy formula. Because the bus didn't arrive early for my shift, I walked 4 kilometers to work in the dark, counting pennies to determine if I had enough for the laundromat, or another week of unclean clothing. My daily worry and calculation of which bill to skip to eat. I clutched the steering wheel, and remembered why I was careful. Why I doubted everything, erected safety nets, and put off trusting others. That wasn't paranoia or difficulty. I learned that by surviving without aid. That instinct kept Lily and me alive when we had nothing. I left the building after 10 minutes and drove home to our safe, roach-free flat. Feeling grateful and frustrated at how hard it was. Lily sobbed into her pillow that night about being confused. Sat on the bed edge, I inquired what was confusing her. She wondered why she had to travel to Adrian's hotel instead of his coming to our place. It was strange having 2 locations and not knowing which was home. Watching her struggle to understand something at her age hurt my chest. I took her favorite plush rabbit from the shelf and told her we would make a routine for between residences. She and I practiced in her room. The bunny went in her little backpack first. We sang the ABCs, while she put on her shoes. Her 3 embraces and my 3 kisses preceded her departure. We'd reverse everything when she got home. She stopped weeping and made me rehearse it 5 times before she remembered. By the end, she laughed when I pretended to forget the letter after M. I tucked her up and promised to repeat the process every time to make her feel safe no matter where we were. Olivia's office hosted the mediation follow-up on Tuesday morning. Mother arrived 10 minutes early and sat in waiting area with folder on lap. Waverly beckoned us back and we sat in the same seats, same distance apart. My mother took 3 handwritten papers from her folder. Waverly requested she read them aloud. My mother's voice trembled as she listed her actions, including pushing me out with 3 hours' notice when I was 22 and pregnant and changing the locks so I couldn't return. Disregarding Rachel's appeals for help getting me into a shelter and telling my family I'd become a stripper instead of acknowledging I was homeless. Never attending Lily's birth hospital, even if Rachel told her. Living 20 minutes away for 4 years without checking on us. The list included 2 pages. Reading made her cry, but she didn't apologize or explain. After finishing, she glanced at me and apologized for each mistake. I could see she still wanted to justify herself, but it was more honest than her previous apologies. I sat there letting the words sink without trying to comfort her or assure her everything was okay. I told her this was a first step, not absolution, and that she needed to keep proving herself via acts after a lengthy quiet. Waverly took notes and booked our next check-in a month later. My restaurant manager and I met the next day at lunchtime. I stated that I needed to rearrange my schedule to be home for Lily's nighttime ritual when Adrian wasn't visiting. We reviewed the staff calendar on his iPad. Instead of 2 nighttime shifts each week, I'd work hectic noon shifts. Lunch shifts paid better due to increased table turnover and more steady business lunch tips. After 3 years of reliability, he gave me first dibs on the calendar and preferred to work with me rather than lose me to another restaurant. I thanked him and felt relieved that all was coming together. Slowly adding logistical breezes made the situation feel more solid and less like it may collapse at any time. Adrian and I wrote Lily's school statement for 2 hours in a coffee shop. We kept things straightforward. Lily's father was found after a long search. We started co-parenting. Both parents asked that issues and concerns be addressed privately rather than with other parents or staff. We wanted Lily to be supported without being judged or gossiped about. The principal phoned me that afternoon after Adrian sent it. She thanked us for being proactive and promised to brief Lily's teacher and front office workers discreetly. They'd record pickup authorization in the system and direct questions to us. She said they'd check for Lily's struggles and notify us promptly. I hung up feeling like we'd spared her some drama. Phyllis called Friday afternoon. She stated she had read all the mediation papers and my mother's treatment documents and felt comfortable approving a brief supervised meeting between us before contacting Lily. Waverly would attend the mediation office meeting to create a safe, impartial environment. Lily would not be impacted if things went wrong since she wouldn't know. Next steps might be considered if everything went well. We booked the meeting on Thursday after I agreed. The next week I was apprehensive and practiced what I wanted to say, writing and marking out things to prepare for a discussion I didn't know how to have. My monitored meeting was harder than imagined. Across from my mother in Waverly's office, a box of Kleenex was on the table. Waverly explained the rules and had my mother read her written apologies. Longer than what she read at mediation, it detailed all 4 years. She described specific occasions she'd denied aid, lied to relatives, and put her pride before my survival. She described receiving Rachel's call that I'd given birth alone and not going to the hospital. 2 years later, she saw Lily's image for the first time and felt nothing because she believed I deserved it. Though her voice cracked several times, she read. She finished, put the papers down, and sobbed without defending herself. I sat there and let the words sink, feeling the rage and pain without trying to comfort her. After many minutes, I informed her I heard her. I wasn't ready to forgive her. Though it wasn't okay, I realized that she'd written and read it honestly without justifications. Waverly asked my mother what I needed next. I stated constant treatment, respect for my boundaries, and time to prove she changed. The rest of the session was devoted negotiating restricted contact. Not allowed overnight visits with Lily till further notice. Minimum 6 months without her alone. Lily's health reviewed every 3 months. Whether my mother continued therapy or not, she might be called grandma, but with tight limitations that could be revoked if she broke any lines. My mother accepted everything without negotiation. She acknowledged she had broken my trust and that it would take years to restore it. Olivia recorded everything we agreed to and guaranteed a written explanation within 2 days. I left the workplace fatigued but felt like the limits were now clear and fair. My mother would influence Lily, but only when she'd shown herself trustworthy via continuous activity. On a Tuesday night, I made a park party supply list for Lily's birthday 3 weeks away. Balloons, paper plates, a grocery store sheet cake, and tag, or duck duck goose. Adrian dropped off Mia's papers that night and spotted my notes on the kitchen table. I told him about the park, how Lily's kindergarten friends would come, and how we'd make it simple and pleasant. He paused, then recommended hiring a princess party business or renting a site with activities. I appreciated the offer but declined since 6-year-olds didn't require sophisticated entertainment, and Lily would rather run around with her pals eating cake. He appeared disappointed but asked how he could assist. I assigned him decorations and games with a $50 budget and a list of dollar store things. The next day, he emailed me photographs of streamers and balloons he'd chosen, wondering if the colors matched. A natural feeling was more important than an elaborate celebration. 2 days later, my mother called while I folded clothes. She suggested Lily visit Switzerland for her birthday, possibly see the Alps, and stay at a family hotel. I paused mid-fold and informed her we were focused on modest local visits and not traveling internationally. She gently objected, stating Lily would learn and the family wanted to meet her. I reiterated that restoring trust required respecting limits without arguing. After quieting down, she stated she understood. No guilt, no manipulation, just acceptance. After hanging up, I was astonished and hopeful that the therapy was working. Mia held a Friday afternoon office meeting to complete things officially. Adrian and I arrived to find her conference table covered in papers. Our parenting plan and schedule, child support trust structure, and court filing paperwork. We spent 2 hours reviewing each piece to ensure we understood what we signed. Mia outlined the trust's monthly payments and how I'd handle them with a financial advisor. She had scheduled an appointment for me with a person who taught individuals who suddenly made money how to budget and invest instead of just consuming. The advisor gave me a business card with her name. First meeting next Tuesday. Adrian signed everything without hesitation, and I signed with a shake because it seemed so official and permanent. Mia said she'd file the parenting plan with the court by Monday, and we'd get co-parent status within weeks. After leaving that office, I felt like the ground was finally firm. Adrian suggested we meet for coffee and discuss a few streets away in a quiet spot. He looked uneasy, putting sugar into his espresso, and revealed his father, Richard, had been phoning him every other day about settling down. His father continued insinuating that Lily's presence would legitimate things and clean up the family if I was a match. I was nervous this might come up, so my stomach dropped. Adrian swiftly stated that he had informed his father. Roma wasn't an option now or ever. We needed to be solid co-parents first, not some contrived connection to make his family happy. He felt our respectful distance was more important than any spectacular gesture or romance. Proving we could work together for Lily was crucial. I appreciated his candor and agreed. Glad we agreed. Something was more vital than fairy tale endings. Lily's stability. Olivia informed me the next week that my mother had finished 3 therapy sessions and was taking the work seriously. The email noted that genuine transformation required months or years, not weeks, but early signals were promising. I read it twice, shifting my skepticism toward conditional trust. I wasn't ready to think she'd changed, but I could observe her activities to see whether they remained constant. Words were simple, but weekly treatment and following limits were tough. A downtown family center hosted the first supervised visit on Wednesday afternoon. I took Lily there and walked her inside where a staff member welcomed us in the lobby. My mother was sitting at a tiny table with crayons and coloring books in the visit room. I visited the building but not the room, sitting in the waiting area with a distracting book. The staff member informed my mother of the regulations. No presents, no promises of future visits, no begging Lily to keep secrets, just talk and activities. Lily emerged with a colorful butterfly image after an hour. My mom followed, keeping her distance and without hugging Lily goodbye. As planned, she thanked the staff person and went through the side exit. Lily was silent in the ride, so I didn't urge her to talk. After we arrived home, I prepared her a snack and sat with her at the kitchen table, gently asking how she felt about meeting her grandma. Lily said grandma was pleasant but sad, and they colored and chatted about favorite animals. She wasn't sure if she wanted to meet her again. Maybe later, not next week. I assured her it was okay, that she could set the speed and nobody would force her. Her conflicted thoughts made sense, and I was glad of her honesty. We decided to discuss it with the therapist at our next appointment before booking another. The park near our flat hosted Lily's birthday celebration on a bright Saturday morning. Kids arrived about 10 o'clock. Parents dropped down wrapped gifts and vowed to pick them up by noon. Adrian arrived early to help me hang streamers on pavilion poles and arrange folding tables. Lily rushed about playing tag with her buddies, laughing so hard she hiccuped. We played musical chairs and red light, green light before bringing out the cake with its sloppy grocery store icing, and 6 candles. Everyone sung, and Lily exhaled them all, beaming. My mother arrived at 11 for her 30-minute monitored window, calmly watching from the pavilion edge. She grinned as Lily waved between games after she presented herself without presents as requested. She bid farewell to Lily without fuss, and returned to her car on time. As she left, I felt something unexpected. Maybe not forgiveness, but faith that things might work if she followed the guidelines. Rachel met me for lunch the following Tuesday at a sandwich shop between our flats. She appeared more calm than in years. During Turkey Club, she told me she wouldn't listen to my mother's concerns about me and that she could go to her therapist instead. Mom initially resisted, but Rachel persisted, and their talks are now shorter and less caustic. We discussed what it meant to be sisters instead of just two people who survived the same horrible mother and made plans to hang out more and create our own connections apart from family conflict. It was nice to have an ally who knew my past and didn't pressure me to forgive. Thursday brought my community college spring semester admission letter. I applied weeks ago but didn't think it would happen. Business principles, English composition, and accounting basic lessons. The timetable fit Lily's kindergarten hours and Adrian's visit days, and I no longer felt financial stress. I could buy textbooks without sacrificing groceries. I could study instead of working extra shifts. Sitting at my kitchen table with that acceptance letter, I thought about the future I'd always desired for Lily and myself, the one I'd built through 4 years of pain and survival. Realization was imminent. Not because someone saved me, but because I battled for it and had the support. Finally, I felt firm ground under my feet after 5 years, and I was ready to go on. Lily watched Adrian's vehicle drive away on Tuesday morning as he traveled for Switzerland. Her hand touched the glass. We scheduled the video calls before he went. Her calendar included stickers she chose for specific times. The first call was at bedtime, and she showed Dad her room on the tablet, pointing at her toys and chatting about kindergarten. He listened and asked questions, and after we hung up, she used the wall calendar stickers to mark the days until his next visit. The method worked better than intended, providing her something to track instead of waiting and wondering. She knew when to anticipate him, making the distance easier. Made his absence tolerable, not threatening. Our counselor confirmed my mother's weekly treatment attendance as necessary. To evaluate Lily's progress, we planned monthly monitored visits with checkpoints every 3 months. I deliberately slowed down to protect Lily, not my mother. She was punctual for visits, respected the regulations, and didn't try to get extra access. I was most shocked by her lack of drama, since I anticipated her to push limits. Instead, she appeared to realize this was her only way back and needed to be careful. Rachel met me for coffee every other week and we chatted about topics other than our mother, creating a connection without family issues. I sat in our living room with the lights off pondering late one night after Lily fell asleep. It was calm and safe in the flat. There was nothing like Lily's first shelter nights in a dresser drawer because I couldn't afford a crib. The difference between then and today was stark. We had come a long way from that country hospital where I gave birth alone. The bugs at our previous studio sprang to mind. Customers who grabbed my ass for $3 tips, going 4 miles to work at night. I didn't want those memories to vanish when things improved. We needed to recall our location. Therefore, I never took this steadiness for granted. My heart had gratitude and caution, both needed and genuine. Our new normal was untidy but organized and ours. Lily had 2 respectable parents who coordinated schedules and placed her needs first, even when it was challenging. Her granny earned her entry with tight rules and checkpoints. Aunt who was becoming a friend instead of a terrified sister. Her mother had endured hell and built something strong, so she realized how much it cost to get here. We all ended up more stable. Better, but not ideal. It was plenty for me,